Speaking of trading activities at the Onitsha main market for 1 week, the enforcement started yesterday, and of course, we saw reports of protests in different parts of Onitsha. Some persons chanting solidarity songs, and some other persons chanting songs in protest of what the governor has said. We also understand that the governor has called for a meeting of all market chairmen today. We also know that in the coming days, we expect to hear reports of what was decided in that meeting and, of course, see where we go from there. Yesterday, we had some major defections. Kano State Governor Yusuf, and, of course, leaving his master to go to the APC. And we have Mutfwang of Plateau State also leaving to the APC. Yesterday, one of the things that struck when his special advisor on, political matters was being interviewed was when he said that they are moving to the APC for the better good of the Plateau people, speaking about a road that has now been awarded and all of that. And then I was asking myself, as a Nigerian, as one who understands that infrastructural development is supposed to be the common patrimony of every Nigerian citizen, how then is joining a political party supposed to earn someone that? Isn't that a very questionable thing about our democracy, about this entire party, alliances that are being formed across different parts of the country? Also, wanted to note that we now have 30 states in the APC, 6 out of the APC. Let's see how all of these translate to victory or not come 2027, which is, by the way, just by the corner. Also, yesterday, Shoria was tried for insulting the president, Bola Tinubu. He was arraigned yesterday. And yesterday, the president was in Turkey, and we saw the things that happened. The trip, Mr. President had a slight fall, and we saw people react to all of that, and the parade, and what I call it, the assistance that was being rendered so that he understands the Turkey presidential parade system. All of these on the side. Yesterday also, Kaduna State, 50 women were kidnapped, and we understand that the kidnappers have already made their demands 250 million. That is what they are asking for. All of these and many more we get to look at on today's edition of the Polity. Good morning to you and welcome. I am Chisom Chinedu. Franklin Ebuka, good morning.
Good morning, Chisom, and good morning to everybody listening to us. Of course, a new day, and for us to look at developments in the polity. And I looked at the papers, seeing the story on Vanguard and also on Punch newspaper, talking about revelations that have been emerging regarding the attempted botched coup against the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where a certain person whose name has been withdrawn, he's been in the news on how he plotted for the entire thing, how much was spent for logistics, how much was spent for mobilization, and what have you not. It was quite an interesting story to read. And then coming to Anambra State yesterday, I saw a letter written by Labour Party governorship candidate in the last Cuba election in Anambra State, Dr. George Moralo, saying that he has resigned from Labour Party. So I don't know where is his next destination, whether he's going to join them in the ADC, or whether he's going to stay up politics for some time. And also, interestingly, too, I also saw a letter that was written by Chris Makum, also saying that he was leaving Abga to be able to, have his stance and be able to align with his political interests. So, interesting times, and then let's get to see how these things form discussion in the coming days.
All right, then Dr. Tony Olisambeki is here to do justice to all of the matters. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Chisom Chinedu. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, the good people of Southeast. Good morning, in Anambra. Good morning, Nde Onitsha Donidu. Good morning, Ndosmo. Good morning, Nde Memmakate. Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. Just like we have always said, truth remains one commodity we must always, no matter our sentiments, bias, or our affiliations or engagements, it must always prevail. And I remember in the works of Usman Dafodio, conscience is an open wound, and it can only be healed by the truth. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Because most people that have freedom uninterrupted over time, being happy, one thing set them free. And that is truth. Sometimes, no matter how it comes, until we embrace truth, we may not be really free. But that's by the way. We thank God Almighty for His mercy, for everything He has done in our lives, and we keep praising Him. We keep worshiping Him for His unmerited benevolence on us. So we are happy being here, and we always say, let the will of God at all time happen. You are welcome.
Absolutely. We go to tell you what the front pages say, and from there we go over to the analysis proper. On our desk this morning, we have This Day newspaper, The Guardian, Punch, and the Vanguard newspapers. On the This Day newspaper, the banner headline here is Edu, FG restoring confidence in power sector as 501 billion naira bond for Gencos is 100% subscribed. The riders here are 5 generation firms sign 87 billion naira deal. Others pending. Gencos pledge capacity expansion after settlement. Payments to cover 290,688 644.84 gigawatts per hour build since 2015. Power grid collapses for second time in 2026. Recovery completed. This is just January 28th, and we've had 2 collapses. I think it was 2024 that we had the worst. I'm not sure 2025 experienced as many collapses as we had in 2024. But the power sector is key to our economical development, and I am hoping that this government, if not achieving anything, manages to stabilize the power sector. It's going to tick off many of the boxes of our issues. LCCI incessant grid issues pose a threat to businesses, and that story is on page 8. Erdogan, Turkey targeting $5 billion in trade with Nigeria, also to help in fighting terrorism. And that story you can find on page 8 of the This Day newspaper. World Bank committed $2.5 billion into Nigeria's infrastructure, education, healthcare sector in 5 years. The story you can find on page 8 as well. Some of the riders are mobilized $5 billion private capital into country in 2025. I'm just curious to find out what impact all of this money was able to make in the different sectors quoted. At the end of the day, it looks like paper impact. Digital reforms, transparency needed to unlock SME procurement, BPP, LCCI say, and those are the stories you'd find on the front page of the This Day newspaper. And finally, Sachet drinks war. Man unions condemn NAFDAC, says action inimical to businesses.
Okay, so I don't know how long that very battle is going to last, because I know that discussions were sometime held in the past about this very phase out of alcohol in sachet and the PEP bottles, and the timeline was given. And when it was time for the implementation, it was shifted. And this time around, Senate has given clearance that NAFDAC should go ahead to implement it. And there are still kicks. Last time it was CSO saying that they were going to shut down NAFDAC office in Lagos. So I don't know how long this is going to linger before we get to have a closure on it. And over to the Guardian newspaper, we have the headlines. The first one here says, ADC hosts opposition show of force, unity, push ahead of 2027. ADC hosts opposition show of force, unity. Okay. ADC hosts opposition show of force, unity push ahead of 2027. The story is on page 6. Coup apologized to Nigerians for initial denial. Fallen hotels, military. The story is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Senate urged to treat food insecurity as national emergency. The story is on page 4. 72% of Nigerian businesses tap AI to overhaul workforce. The story is on page 22. This one says, court suspends FCTA worker strike as Wike cased 12 billion naira for salaries. The story is on page 30. And yesterday he gave he made a vow that any worker who fails to report to work today, the person is going to face the music. Then Tinubu pushes defense economic ties in Turkey as aides dismiss health fears. The story is on page 6. Mr. President, he tripped yesterday, and the presidency has blamed a couple of things. They want to blame Metro and what have you not for what happened, but they said it's not all about the well-being or the health of Mr. President. Sit at home, traders protest as Soludo shuts down Onitsha market. The story is on page 7. More officials quit cabinet as youth launches APC e-registration exercise. The story is on page 30 of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, then from the Guardian newspaper, let's go over to the Punch newspaper and tell you what the front page says. The banner headline here is Investigation uncovers a colonel who plotted Tinubu's ouster. That's on page 2. And the riders here, interim report reveals military officers targeted president, VP, ministers and key installations, arrests ongoing. And beside the nameplate of the paper, Disco's blame low generation as grid collapses third time on page 23. Tinubu proposes 110 Court of Appeal judges. That's on page 7. He said it is to quicken the judicial process in Nigeria. We also understand that there's also another proposal to bring about more increments. Presidency downplays Tinubu's stumble as says Turkey. Presidency downplays Tinubu's stumble, says Turkey visit on cause on page 3. Wike threatens workers as court orders strike suspension on page 7. He said no work, no pay. How I lost 3-week-old daughter to Makoko demolition. That's a carpenter's sad story on pages 4 and 5. Shaware's trial, court admits a mockery clip calling Tinubu drug lord on page 14. Omokri said, I took back that statement. Not also forgetting that Omokri is built to become an ambassador in Nigeria. How dramatic things turn in this country, you may say. But of course, we go over to the next paper on our desk this morning.
Yes, the internet never forgets because in your forensic time, you might go to the internet and dump what you think or speaking the truth or speaking what you believe in. And when the tide turns, of course, the internet will be right there before you, telling you what you did in the past. Even when you try to delete on your own, others have access to those things. And now over to Vanguard newspaper. There is headline that I omitted somewhere on the Guardian. I think the story was actually planted at the commercial story. It's about this very thing between Nest Oil and whatever. Now this one says setting the record straight on the disqualification of Nest Oil lawyers. You see that on Vanguard newspaper headlines. And then another headline here says 2027 polls won't be decided by incumbency. The story is on page 8. Atiku will be Arebo Shola, others. They are the ones who are saying so. So by the time, when the time comes, we will not get to know whether it's going to be incumbency or any other variables. LCCI, others laments losses as national grid collapses again. The story is on page 20. Yesterday I jokingly said that maybe we should prepare a glucose solution. Each time the power the grid collapses, we have to give it glucose. Maybe it can help to revive and resuscitate. A customs duty violation. Court orders for feature or private aircraft or FG. The story is on page 9. World Bank offers $250 billion procurement window to Nigerian firms. The story is on page 19. FG Northern leaders, lawyers differ on amnesty for terrorists. The story is on page 5. And there are some writers to the story. And one says governors have powers to grant such amnesty if AGF says so. They can't grant amnesty offenses under federal law. Lawyers, ACF, CNG, CAN, MBF, Muslim clerics, all that disagree, say amnesty will compound insecurity in region. And then you see the picture story of Mr. President and the Turkish president during his visit. And the headline there says Tinubu visit Turkey. 2027 APC leaders receive Mutwang, offer him automatic ticket. The story is on page 13. I do not know what is going to become of APC, whether all these defections are going to spell, gloom or doom for the APC. Because by the time somebody comes from a different party and you have offered a person automatic ticket, what about the people who have been there in the party, sacrificing for the party, building for the party? Would they feel good about such kind of arrangement? Then another headline here says, Oshun local government tenure dispute. Adeleke APC trade wars. The story is on page 10. Ankara, despite fall, Tinubu's in great shape. Presidency. The story is on page 32. Bandits kill to abduct over 50 women in Katsina community. Then another story says, Adepo Julawa hails Super Eagles new team spirit. The story is on page 39. And the final story on the front page of Vanguard says, FG raises 501 billion naira from bond market to settle Genco's debt. The story is on page 20.
All right, then we're starting off with some national matters now. Yesterday, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was in Turkey, Ankara precisely, and sadly, he had a brief stumble and fell. He didn't even fall like Yakatao. He fell, but and of course, a lot of things have been said. According to the presidency, he's in great shape. Now, this report by the Vanguard has it that the president appeared to have missed a step, causing him to lose balance. Officials nearby quickly stepped in to assist, and he was promptly helped back on his feet. He continued with the program shortly afterwards without further incident. And of course, the visit forms part of ongoing diplomatic engagement between Nigeria and Turkey. But the president said, or presidency has said that despite the alleged, it's not an alleged misstep, it was actually a misstep, the program went on smoothly. At the time, the special advisor to the president on policy communication, Daniel Bwala, was contacted. He said the president is currently addressing the press. He is fine. Okay? So the special advisor to the president on media and public communication, Sunday Dare, on his X account, that's formerly tweeted, said the president was in great shape. He said, President Tinubu in great shape as state visit proceeds smoothly. And so, Tony, a lot of questions have been asked, a lot of would I say, insinuations have been made. People insinuating that maybe the president is unhealthy. And they're asking questions about public transparency with managing perceptions about the president's health and even fitness, especially where he has to, bear the burden of guiding the affairs of the most populous black nation.
Well, just like we know very well, there are a lot of things that came out of that very visit, or the visit is still on, but many Nigerians are more concerned about the fall. And remember, we are told that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is in Turkey, who embarked on state visit, which was, according to the state release, is a diplomatic engagement aimed at strengthening bilateral relations and expanding partnership between Nigeria and Turkey. And we are told that the purpose of the trip, which include deepening cooperation in security, education, and social development, innovation, and aviation. We also told that strategic political and economic talks with the Turkish President Recep Erdogan was also part of the travel. And we also expect potential signing of memoranda of understanding in areas such as trade, energy, science, research, and also technical cooperation, media and communications, and also military cooperation as well. So it was more like a comprehensive in the way and manner it was also orchestrated. We expect Mr. President to also host a business forum, which will also promote investment opportunities between the two nations. But in all of this, Nigerians are not looking at the travel, but everybody's concerned about the fall. I remember this is not the first time Nigerian president has slipped. Recall that in June 2024, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, president, he slipped and fell while boarding a parade vehicle during the democracy celebration at Ego Square in Abuja. We saw that. Even when he was to be sworn in, we saw Ose slip. So this is not the first time.
Does that say anything about his health?
But I don't know, but it could be. But it may not be. I can't sit down here and say it is or it's not because I don't have his medical records. But Nigerians can always assess things based on what actually is going on. I remember Gerald Ford, the president of the United States of America. In fact, in 1975, Gerald Ford tumbled down the rain-slick stairs of Air Force One. He tumbled. And his own wasn't just a fall. He fell and then he was rolling. But he was the president at that time. If you look at Robert Mugabe, his own was characterized with different falls. He fell many times. He had fallen from a staircase after addressing supporters at a point in Harare. I remember even likes of Fidel Castro. There was a time in 2004, I think 2004, when he fell off a stage. He broke his nail. He broke his arm. Even Vladimir Putin of Russia, the strongman of the East, as we call him, in 2019, there was a time on the ice. I think he fell on the ice during post-game lap. So in all of this, we've seen different presidents of different countries falling off from time to time. But a repeated fall raises question or raises concern about the health of the president. Because if you look at some of these people I've mentioned, maybe it happened to them once or twice. But in our own case, where Mr. President has repeatedly fallen off from time to time, many people are taking a swipe on some of these things. But it is important to know that Mr. President, yes, he has, like I said, embarked on numerous travels. He has embarked on numerous international trips. He has done that, I think, by 2026, Mr. President must have traveled to close to 50 countries. And we've seen him visiting approximately between 20 to 25 countries in between this period. And there are countries he has visited twice. Because we have, for once, looked at this visit and what have this visit yielded to the country. I'm aware that in 2026, because remember before we come into this 2026, Mr. President did not celebrate New Year here. He did not celebrate New Year. We are told that he embarked on a particular journey. We are told he will be leaving for Europe. But we later discovered, because I said at that time that Mr. President will be in France. And from France, he went to United Arab Emirates. And he was in that very summit until he came back sometime around, I think, 13th or 14th of January. If care is not taken, around 14th of January. And before you know it, he has also started another travel. The question will be, how many times does Mr. President stay even in the country? It's a concern for so many. And people felt that there are some of these travels, there are things that can be done by our Foreign Affairs Ministry. We have got people over there, though we have not got the embassy running, but we have those in that diplomatic corps that can handle some of these things. So it is important that Mr. President we are looking at the impact or the gains of these travels. We have not seen any. Because in 2025, Mr. President traveled to about 25 countries or thereabouts. So I remember he had been to Ghana and so many other countries. And one would also look at the cost of all this travel. We are told that according to aviation experts, because we don't have a comprehensive total cost for all these foreign trips embarked upon by Mr. President, since it was sworn in sometime around 29th of May 2023. But we know very well that these travels, if you put it together according to aviation experts, has cost about 26.38 billion over 18 months, in 18 months period. And when you talk about 18 months, we're talking about a year and 6 months. That's the cost of such travel, 26.38 billion. And we are told that The president has spent over 23 billion in foreign exchange on international trips in 2024 alone. That's the amount spent on foreign exchange in 2024, because we have that as a data. So we've got earlier report on some of these things. So it is important that you look at the money we are spending trying to bring in this investment, trying to drive this investment, and we've not been able to see some of this investment materialize. Of course, we've seen MOU signed, we've seen some engagement, we've seen some corporations, but one person has asked me one question. In all of this travel, Mr. President has not deemed it fit to travel to United States of America. Is he afraid of that very country? That you can list all the countries he has been to, but he has not been to United States of America. Why is it so? That was the question the person put to me, and I said I'm not going to answer that. You know why? Because I'm not part of government or President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's itinerary.
Okay, so Tony, can I come in here? Because we're talking about the fall of Mr. President, or let's say the stumble that happened in Turkey, which of course we have seen many persons raising some questions about it. People were raising some critical questions, and like you mentioned rightly, that he's not the very first president who has stumbled. In fact, the classical case we have now is former American President Joe Biden. In 2023, Joe Biden, fell on stage in Colorado. A year before then, he fell on Air Force One stair while climbing the stair. So we have cases. Yesterday, I was coming from Osek, just close to DMGS here. I saw a woman between 40 and 50. She was just walking, and next thing, at that chair, and
we all miss steps
sometimes.
sometimes.
And she fell. And we know that with age, by the time you age, your ability to reduces. Now, when you are say very young, if you bump into anything, the tendency for you to struggle and be able to get your footing is higher compared to when you were 18, because you're no longer that ebullient as you used to be. So with this, and Nigeria has been unnecessarily critical about Mr. President, asking questions about whether he's healthy or not. Apart from the stumble, has he shown any sign of being unfit medically to be the president of Nigeria?
You know very well that the issue of Mr. President being fit, being healthy is a concern to every Nigerian, because Mr. President, I've always said, he's a public figure, and his private life is more like restrained, constrained. He has become somebody who lost the destiny of over 240 million people. So anything around him means so much to these people. So Nigerians, yes, they have every right to question Mr. President's fitness. They have every right to question that, because when you entrust your destiny in someone's hand, you must query the capacity, the fitness, and possibly the medical wellness of such person you have given that, because it's going to affect you. So, but how we go about it is a different thing altogether, because we know very well that God is giver of health. But I know some people will say, if you know you are not healthy, why are you running for that post? Why are you running for that position? You should allow those who are more healthier than you to take up such position, as against what we've been seeing. I have said many times, the life Mr. President lives is a public life. It's no more private to an extent. There are just little things about him that should be private. But majority of his livelihood, or the way things are around him, they are public now.
All right. Do you think Nigerians need some sort of reassurance concerning the president's health? Because I like to think that, like I said earlier, he's leading the most populous black nation. And people want to be sure that he's fit, at least. Because a healthy body should house a healthy mind, a working mind. And of course, you would agree with me that once you're unhealthy, a lot of things are just falling apart. Your mind is clouded, it's not working clearly, and all of that. And also, we've had in the past, for instance, Jerome Buhari was in charge. We've had instances of people alleging now after his death that there were times that he was very ill and not in the country, and people were making decisions on his behalf, and a lot of things went wrong at the time. And so people really need to be reassured. People really need to be confident and trust that Mr. President is healthy, and we do not have a repeat of what happened with the previous administration at some point. So, Tony, How do you think this can be done? Rebuilding the trust that people have in his capabilities.
Yes, the presidency has reassured Nigerians.
Is that enough?
You ask what is enough. For now, are you going to put out medical records, medical history, and so many things to convince Nigerians? Remember?
Sorry. That was a question I asked, which I think we didn't address.
All right, okay. All right.
Which I think if we address it, we were able to answer this question Jason brought about. I said, in recent times, or in the past 2 years, has the president shown signs that should give Nigeria concern that there could be a question about his medical fitness?
If you ask me that question, has he shown signs? Has he shown some of the things that would make Nigerians to ask questions about his medical fitness? Yes, because I just talked about his fall during the anniversary in 2024, Independence anniversary. I talked about it, where he fell off while trying to embark upon that, parade. But that is one, and we've seen another one now. And we also record that over time people have questioned how he walks, how he moves. But Mr. President,
so those things, are they signs of somebody being unhealthy or sign of age?
For me, it could be sign of coming to an age, or becoming aged somehow. But Mr. President, the last time I listened to him, when he was making his speech somewhere in Dubai, he showed no sign of being unhealthy. I'm talking about intellectual clearness, because he made that very speech extempore, in the sense he didn't look at any script, and I commended him for that, even though I did not come out in the open to commend him. But I said, for the fact that Mr. President was able to address issues relating to climate change and the carbon emission and so many things without looking at any script, I said that he must have demonstrated that mental alertness. It's one thing to be mentally alert, it's another thing to be physically fit, because there are people who are mentally alert but they may not be physically fit. I've seen that over times. And when you measure fitness, how do you measure fitness? What is the yardstick to measure fitness? But I've just said, like I said earlier on, Nigerians have every reason to ask questions. But those who are taking it to the extreme, remember, under section 144 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, Mr. President can be removed on the grounds of incapacity, but it requires a resolution by the Federal Executive Council, a medical panel appointed by the Senate President, a formal medical finding that the President is permanently incapable of performing the functions of his office. If you look around, you know very well that will be never a time the President, Federal Executive Council will think anything of such. And you know very well that the Senate President cannot even constitute any medical panel based on the resolution of the Federal Executive Council meeting, or even a formal medical finding that the President is permanently incapable of performing the functions of his office. These are the processes laid down in the Constitution that will trigger the issue of removing Mr. President on health ground or being incapable of running that very office. But I know very well that people have said that working style is not incapacity, that somebody bent somehow to work, it is not a sign of incapacity, that age is not a sign of incapacity, that even medical trips, falling off either the aircraft stairs or any stairs or trying to move, these things are not signs of incapacity, because we are talking about incapacity, we are not talking about fitness again, because these are two different things. So because what the Constitution talks about is incapacity, being incapacitated. So the Constitution did not even talk about fitness, but we know very well that it requires fitness to govern a country like ours.
Okay, so let me now get back to the area of the concerns Nigerians have about the frequent foreign travels by Mr. President and even the Vice President, because if you look at how we ended 2024 and how 2025, how we ended 2025 and how 2026 has started, it appears that it's going to be the same story that is going to continue. Now, if you look at 2024, it was reported that the presidency spent over 23 billion naira on the purchase of foreign exchange to fund international trips for top government officials, which included Mr. President, Vice President, the First Lady. And this very money, includes a forex board for travel, accommodation, and operational costs abroad. Then there was one analysis which was done by Gospend. Gospend tracks government expenditure, and this analysis indicated that between June 2023 and March 2024, that about 8.64 billion naira was spent on local foreign travels, expenses for Mr. President and the Vice President just over 3 months. That tells you that we spend a whole lot of money when it comes to the travels that Mr. President and the Vice they do embark upon. But each time we raise it very concerned, people in the presidency or people who are in the ruling party, they will tell you that that there have been gains Nigerians have made from all this travel. And you look at the information they have put out so far this very year, the presidency is saying that ever since the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power, that Nigeria has been able to attract over 50 billion US dollars in foreign direct investment commitment. That was since May 2023. And they are saying that these very investments are in the area of energy, manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, and technology. And some of us, these very investments, we might not have seen them. Some of them, we might have seen or felt them. But it might not be that they do not exist. But because what is now left is, okay, how do we now verify that these things are there? Now, they are even saying that the last time Mr. President went to Brazil, that he was able to get a Brazil company to commit 2.5 billion US dollars towards Nigeria's livestock sector. Now, we cannot rule out the fact that foreign travels are necessary. They're important in the Committee of Nations. That there are ones you need to be there physically to engage with others. There are ones you might not need to be there to engage. So, is there any way we can possibly strike a balance where we look at what is needed, look at how we can train the number of people who are on the entourage, because that's another thing altogether, so that we'll be able to manage the little resources we have. Because why we are crying for is that we don't even have the resources to spend. The little one we have that we can put into education, infrastructure, and other things, we spend a good chunk of it on all the very foreign travels. If you are to talk to the handlers of the government on how we can become reasonably responsible and fiscally responsible when it comes to using the funds to go for these intended or wanted investment into Nigeria. How do we balance this? I
think you balance it by looking at the gains, if any, and possibly the cost. Because if you're a successful businessman, you look at the profit and loss, the gains and the cost. So governance, sometimes we are business look, because you are concerned about the coming in as against the going out. Yes, I wouldn't say that Mr. President probably has not attracted one or two things since he started on these foreign travels that has cost us so much money. I'm aware that the major trips he embarked upon, about 14 billion US dollars, was tied in commitment. He secured it around the G20 summit in India. I'm also aware that something of that nature came from ExxonMobil. We've seen $8 billion from Indorama. We've also seen about $3 billion from Shell, about 9.2 billion euros, which is about $10 billion from APPL. So if you look at all this, you find out that these multilateral corporations agreement that enable trade and investment during official visits to countries like China, United Kingdom, France, Qatar, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and others. I know he has signed multiple memoranda of understanding spanning trade, energy, technology, agriculture, education, infrastructure, and also mining and corporation. He has done some of these things. But if you look around, I'm aware also that the last time he went to Brazil, he was able to secure about $1 billion investment agreement.
But how do we cut costs?
But the thing is, these things are tied. We've not seen these things materializing. And that's where Nigerians are really getting more concerned. And remember, last time he went to Brazil, we were able to establish a direct flight between Nigeria and Brazil. And to date, I don't know if the flight has commenced. Can I travel from Nigeria now to Brazil? So these things are still there. But the truth is, these things are taking more time to mature. Mr. President, no doubt, I remember that some of those who are managing the economy have said that his travels has also attracted about $50 billion in foreign direct investment. That's what they said. But
and Nigerians even feeling the impact. I just hear figures. But look around you, Tony.
If you look around, I will tell you that it is even taking so much time. Mr. President, on May 29th, will be celebrating his 30th year in office and gradually coming to a close of his first time. I would have loved a situation whereby all his travels would have metastasized into some physical gains, because that's what Nigerians are concerned about. We've got so many infrastructural deficits around the country. Look at our hospitals, look at our education sector, look at issues of security. I know very well they're talking when it comes to weapons. They are good with that. There's no doubt. But because if you look at this very travel, they also tied or looked at it from the angle of security cooperation. But what can Turkey do for us that we cannot do for ourselves? So it is embodiment of so many things, unseen and seen, but we are counting on the ones seen, not unseen or things tied in agreement or commitment. With this commitment, when are they coming to fruition?
When are they coming to fruition? That's a big question, and we are hoping that the presidency starts to give us answers with proof. Like they say on the streets, show workings. We take a break now, attend to a commercial. When we come back, we take a look at all the happenings in Nigeria. Of course, a lot of defections happened yesterday. We're also going to be quickly taking a look at investigations that led to the uncovering of the colonel who plotted the ouster that, although was denied, we are getting names now. And some persons say it's not been amplified because there is no Igbo man on the list. Ethnic perspective, I know, but we take a look at all of that. To stay.
You're listening to Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
Measles and rubella are deadly diseases. They spread fast, can cause blindness, brain damage, miscarriage, and sometimes death.
Every day, Nigerian children are at risk. But there is good news. The Saints can protect your child. The Anambra State government will conduct a mass vaccination campaign for children 0 to 14 years from 4th to 15th February 2026 to protect children across the state from deadly diseases. Take your child 9 months to 14 years for the measles rubella vaccine today. Complete all routine immunization doses from birth. After the campaign, routine vaccination continues in all health facilities. Vaccines are safe, effective, and paid for by the government. Don't wait. Visit your nearest health facility or vaccination site. Leave no child behind. This message is brought to you by the Anambra State government and partners.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. You're listening to the Polity. Get involved now.
Approximately 2 months after we first heard of this supposed or planned coup, we are getting some actual report concerning it. And so, according to security investigations, the identity of the army colonel, who, according to this report by the Punch newspaper, had repeated failures in promotion, felt disgruntled, started mobilizing people within the Air Force, the Navy, and of course the Army to survey critical national installations, including the Presidential Villa, major barracks, and international airports, to have a coup done. The DHQ in October told us that there were 16 officers involved, and they told us that they were having issues with discipline in the military. But then, from what we saw yesterday, 16 names were released, and apart from one officer from Oyo State, the rest are from the core north. And of course, some persons have given several interpretations to all of this. Some persons are saying, "Oh, it's not making headlines. It's not forming major conversations. Bruno Mokri is not making posts the morning, afternoon, night, midnight about this because there is no Igbo soldier involved, and all of those are just side talks." Now, to the critical problems surrounding this, We've seen many African nations, I mean, our neighbors, overtaken by the military. And we sat here and we said, if things are not taken care of, it's only a matter of time before it spreads. It's like a pandemic. And one day it was Niger, and then it was Burkina Faso, and it's just spreading like some wildfire, some epidemic. And here we are, one has been forward, Tony. Some persons are asking questions. What are the guarantees that we don't have another in the offing, especially looking at the way things are in the country? And of course, some persons are also asking about the intelligence gaps that allowed this supposed plot to target the executive branch of the government. I mean, what gaps even gave rise to the development, the survey, the planning in the first place before it was eventually botched? And what does that say about our security architecture? I mean, look at what insecurity is doing to us. And if we can have this happen within the ranks and files of our military, what does that say about the safety of the average Nigerian?
It tells a lot. When you say what does that say about the safety of average Nigerians, it tells a lot. And just like we did say yesterday on this issue, that yes, for the first time, it was not stigmatized as an ethnically backed kill, because if there is any of such, Igbos will be first to be shamed. Nobody's talking about the ethnic related matter as far as these people are concerned. Recall when we celebrated the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, the coup of 1966, January 15, was tagged pure evil. I saw write-ups by different people. I saw write-ups. I saw the one by Femi Fani-Kayode. I saw the one by Reno Mokore. They all did say one thing or the other, but nobody's talking about this coup right now. And even when the military denied it, and then I've listened to Femi Fani-Kayode, where he said that the military should apologize to Nigerians for first denying such incident, because it was first rumored sometime around October 2025, but it was quickly denied by the hierarchy, by the military command, by the military hierarchy. But if you look around these people right now, we are told that the coup was uncovered and thwarted. I think the most senior army officer linked to the coup is Brigadier General Musa Abubakar Sadiq, and we are told that he has been identified by military investigators as the most senior figure in that plot to overthrow the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But we know very well that the coup also involved multiple military officers across ranks and services. For those from Air Force and Navy, we also drawn into the whole thing. And we know very well that indicted alongside Sadiq is Colonel M.A. Maji and several other lieutenant colonels, majors, captains, and naval and air force officers. We talked about this yesterday, and we are told that they are about 16 in number. So we've seen coup in different countries. We saw the one in Benin Republic. Remember, Nigerian government sent military aircraft to quell the coup in Benin Republic. Soldiers led by Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigre seized the state television and announced that they had taken power. But the coup attempt was quickly thwarted by government forces and regional interventions championed by Nigeria. Remember how the Burkina Faso authorities seized the aircraft that had an emergency landing in their own airspace. We saw something of such again in Guinea-Bissau. Late in 2025, the military ousted the government and later set elections for December 2026. It happened in Guinea-Bissau. So we're seeing coup across different West Africa and the Sahel region. Several countries, they have had coup in recent years. We've seen one in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger Republic, Guinea, and others. They have all experienced military takeover or attempted coup since 2020. It's a very big problem in West African region. Why is military government being the new fashion, something in vogue? Something is fundamentally wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong. We ask ourselves, what version of democracy do we practice? The version we practice, this democracy, does this serve the interests of the people? Just look around. We are talking about 2025, Guinea-Bissau, Benin Republic. Though that of Benin Republic was quelled, and now we are talking about Nigeria. I never believed that we'll be in the league of these nations. I never believed it. What could have triggered this? Because if you look at the stories we are told that the colonel had written promotion examinations repeatedly, but he couldn't make it. Instead of nursing his frustration privately, he started recruiting officers into his network. There were those that were asked to target the Aso Villa. So their own point of duty was to do all you could in Aso Villa, monitor movement, monitor network, monitor those. We saw that they even used Julius Berger, which is one of the contractors of the federal government, to get certain assets. That's one of the reports we got. We also told that there were those who were mapped as the top target by the time the queue gets to its implementation stage, likes of the president, senate president, the speaker of the House of Representatives, the vice president, that these were the top targets by these queue plotters. And not just that, that even some areas were marked as targets. The airports, international airports, the Murtala Mohammed airport, the one in Abuja, Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, and even there are some National Assembly and the state-owned media places. So these were the plans for these people. We are told that the investigators have uncovered this. But the question is, who is telling this story? Who is telling the story?
Yes. Well, who is telling the story is very central to what the truth actually is. When you said something about instead of nursing their frustration, or his
that's what they said, and he said that's what they told us.
It struck something in me. What if, because we've often heard allegations that within the military that some persons do not get what is due them. I'm sure you must have heard certain allegations like that. We've also heard reports and allegations, maybe without proof, that people from a certain part of the country also get to be relegated to the back and only put at the front when it is a place of maybe in front of battle or fire. You get what I'm referring to. What is the truth concerning the internal operations of the military? Now, I know the military has a way of doing their own things, but surely they are guided still by certain laws. So what is the guarantee that the ranks and files, within the ranks and files of the army, the rights of people are not being trampled on, so much so that these monsters are fed? I mean, you can't push a ball to the wall and stop it from bouncing back.
You know, over time, the government has tried to placate the military, the ranks and military, the ranks and files in the military. And they have always pledged their allegiance to civilian authorities from time to time. But you asked, why this? The individual involved, if he's dissatisfied with his promotion, how is that related to overthrowing the president? I think if you are having problem with a promotion, it should be directed towards the army hierarchy. Why are you translating that to overthrowing Mr. President? Because if Mr. President is overthrown, does that solve your problem of promotion? That's why I said there is a disconnect in the story being told. There is a disconnect.
So, I'm glad you're saying it, because I have been trying to wrap my head around the story, because I went through the story this very morning, in as much as the story was created to an unnamed source within the security hierarchy. Because I went through to find out what was the grievance, and they said that the grievance of the man was the fact that he had failed the promotional exam several times. Perhaps he had not been promoted for some years now. Then he was able to harness other disgruntled elements within the armed forces to begin to plot this very coup. So if the story as reported by this unknown source is anything to go by, what I'm trying to find out is what is that thing that has not been unmarked? Why am I saying this? With the story is saying that the president, vice president, and some other persons were marked for elimination. If the coup had succeeded. And like you said, so what is the connection between him failing the examination and not getting promoted and then the president? Because if you look at why military always strike, whether in Nigeria or in Africa or anywhere in the world, if you look at why they do strike, one is when you have weak democratic institutions and governance, and they tend to find a way to exploit it to strike. Where you have economic decline, and maybe you have social discontent, they might strike. Where you have some grievances within military organization, they might also decide to exploit that to strike. Security crisis like we had in Burkina Faso and Mali, internal conflict, they can also exploit it. Then there's also this issue of political polarization. They can exploit these things, or even when they have election dispute, like we saw in Guinea-Bissau, and what have you not. So I'm trying to look at the correlation between what was said is the grievance of the person who plotted the coup, and so is there anything that has not been unmasked that we need to allow time?
For me, there
give us the
for me, there are so many things that have not been unmasked. They have not told us the real story. That's my own thought about it. The story is told by one person, managed by one person. How can I believe this story when at first there was a denial? When it was first speculated, the person narrating the story denied it never happened, and now came back to tell us, look at what happened. So we are not people that are gullible, people that can be easily brainwashed. The truth is that there are certain things that we have not been told about this. There are those who have said that because of disenchantment in the country, that this group of military could be dissatisfied with the way and manner government affairs are being conducted. I don't have any proof to that. There are those who believe that the northern elements or the north, they have not been carried along, that they have been totally disappointed, owing to the fact that if you look at the number of people that are doing this, many of them are from that very angle, that they may not like the way things are going because that's not what they bargained for. There are different political correlations that have been bandied, that have been speculated. But the question is, what is actually the truth? Yes, they are going to fix a military court martial. I have said it many times that the worst civilian administration is far more better than the best military administration, because you are not going to have freedom. Freedom is a priceless commodity. I have seen our people rejoicing with those in Niger Republic, those in Burkina Faso, Mali. But if you go to these countries, you cannot talk the way we talk here. You cannot even express your opinion. Most times, I have always said, opinion that is straight jacket, that is just pointing one side, is usually biased, because you have to look at the two sides and possibly sway different positions on the same issue. We are saying that it has become a fashion for West African countries, especially countries in that very Sahel belt, but that is fundamental problem. We've said it many times. Our own kind of democracy is democracy of convenience, democracy of looting, democracy of acquiring wealth. If you look around our politicians, many of them have told us at one point or the other that we are going to do this, I will not be subject to this. Of course, I saw a video where Wike was criticizing those who, for one reason or the other, take their children, their wards outside the country for education. But we saw him the other day celebrating with his own child, celebrating with his own son. This was exactly what he preached many years ago. We've seen many of our politicians junketing around the country for medical tourism. Can any of them go to any public hospital in this country and also address any medical issue he has? Can any of them do that? So they live in a different world. The masses, they live in another world. Situations whereby we've seen it in area of education. There are demarcations. They travel in first class, but here many don't even have good transportations. We've seen crashes, bad roads, and what's still is that they manage our affairs. So is government not going to look into some of these things? We are talking about the poverty in the country, the hardship in the country, the unemployment in the country, the inflation in the country, but many of them are busy talking about 2027. We saw what happened in Jos Plateau yesterday. We have moved to defected to APC, and in his own words, he said he did not defect. He did political reengineering. That's another lexicon anyway. He said what he did was realignment, not defection, and nobody should say what he did is defection. That's moved to And we saw NNPP governor in Kano State down in APC as well. So many of them are busy chasing 2027. Nobody is chasing 2026 when it comes to the welfare of the people. The security and welfare of the people remains the primary responsibility of the government. We have just been told that those kidnappers, those terrorists, those bandits that kidnapped worshippers in Kajuru, Kaduna State, the worshippers, remember, they denied it as well. I don't know why denial seems to be something that is accustomed to different governments at different times. Denial, it never happened. But at a point, they also readmitted that it happened. We are told that 250 million. That's what the bandits are saying. You have to give us 250 million. You have to also give us 20 motorcycles for them to release those people that we are kidnapped, that we abducted.
The 50 women.
About 50. Yes, I think that.
And 2 people died in that incident.
It was around 16th or 17th of January, and now that is where we are. Remember, the government and the governor of Kaduna State has been giving them money, trying to settle them. Now he has 250 million to cough out, and it will not even solve it. So the point I'm making is this: I've always said we must seek for permanent cure of anything, not something that will give us a temporary relief. If the governor has done what many of us told him to do, possibly there are people that may pay the prices. There are people that may have that discomfort, but it will get a long way to solve this issue of kidnapping. We can always accommodate temporary pains that would also usher in something that will be more like liberating the people. So it is important, but we've not seen that in that area, in that side. So these politicians, many of them are chasing 2027. They have forgotten 2026. They have to know that they have to govern well in 2026 before 2027. Many of them are not thinking in that way.
All right then, Tony, speaking about what's happening and how people are thinking about things, Northern Elders and the federal government and of course some lawyers have differed on the idea of giving amnesty to terrorists or bandits as part of peace building. Some leaders oppose the blanket amnesty, that's what they've called it, arguing that it is a way of legitimizing criminality, while others see negotiated peace as an option. And looking at the two arguments from no attached perspective, one would be wondering why any nation would be negotiating with criminals, especially